So let's say my password is Apple123123, okay? This is my password. I want to save this. If I now hit enter... Alright, so we've all seen that post where it was like a guy who used a chess game to like store his files, right? Like, obviously, I'm sure that, you know, all of us have seen that post. But in case one of you haven't, or in case you forgot, right? Because I'm sure all of you have seen it. It was effectively a post, right? And all jokes aside, this was actually a real thing. It was this guy who developed 2 bots. So he made 2 bots, right? And he had like an image. So let's say he wanted to save an image, or he wanted to like save a piece of text or whatever. And you know how data is represented in ones and zeros, right? Like a very bare bones explanation is that like, if I want to save the text ABC, then it's going to turn A into ones and zeros, then it's going to turn B into ones and zeros, then C, and then it now has all of that information, and then it can transform those ones and zeros back into ABC. And so this guy decided to try an experiment where he tried to save an image via a game of chess. So what ended up happening is that he made 2 bots, one for white and one for black, and let's say the bot wants to save each pixel of the image as binary, so as ones and zeros, then they would basically make moves that would correspond to be ones and zeros, right? So I can't even... Can I even move this? Damn, I can't move this way. Hold on. Okay, there we go, yeah. So basically, right, once a move is made, then the bot does its other move, and these moves are supposed to basically represent ones or zeros, right? So let's say if I move my pawn up here, that's going to be a 1. But then if I moved my pawn over here and not over here, that would be a 0, right? So he basically just coded that certain movements that pieces do correspond to ones and zeros. And then they basically just have a chess game that lasts basically forever until they make enough moves and they have enough ones and zeros to represent the image that the guy was trying to save, right? And then in order to turn this chess game back into the image, chess.com actually saves like all chess games. So he would just go there, he would just, you know, have the bots check out the game again, and then whenever a move is made, the bots would then turn that move back into binary, and then turn that binary back into an image. Now, this was a process that took a really long time, as you might expect, because I'm not sure if you know this, but an image has a lot of pixels, right? And each pixel for each color is like, that's a lot of ones and zeros. I'm not too sure if that's exactly how he did it, right? But there's still a lot of ones and zeros, and it's just very slow to do, and you're just better off using something like Google Drive or whatever. But it just gave me an idea of like, could Roblox be used to save data? Because like, you've played a game on Roblox before where like it saves your data, right? Like, let's say you have like some tycoon game, right? Like when you leave the game and when you rejoin, it loads your progress back in, assuming the game is good and not stupid, right? Like it saves the progress. It saves how much cash you had. It saves your rebirths. It saves your, I don't know, game passes or whatever else the game has, right? So then in theory, wouldn't it be possible to play some random Roblox game, right? And find a way to save data in that game. Like, let's say I wanted to save a piece of text, like maybe I have like a very important password. What if I want to save that password in some Roblox game? Like, you know what I mean, right? Because I'm pretty sure Roblox games don't have like a small limit on how much data you can save. I know there's a limit, but like there's a lot of data that you can save to Roblox servers for your game for every individual player, right? And I really don't think I'm the first person to think about this. Like, is there a game out there that solely exists to help you save data? Like, I don't know, maybe let's say there is some sort of a... Like, let's say there's some sort of, like, box in the game. Like, let's say the entire game is just a box, okay, for example. And then whenever I play the game, then I can type something in the box, like my password. Okay, let's say this is my password, right? And then what if I click enter, maybe I want the game to then save the password into its database, right? And then whenever I rejoin the game, then I'll have access to like all of my passwords, all of my binary, all of my images, just whatever, right? And to be honest, I don't actually recall any game like that. I don't think there's a game out there on Roblox, and if there is, it hasn't been popular enough, that exists solely to save your data. Which leads me to believe that either I'm just a genius and I'm the first person to ever think about this, which I doubt is the case. Like, obviously I'm a genius, right? But like, you know, Roblox hasn't existed for a small amount of time. It's been out for like years, right? So then the other possibility is that Roblox doesn't allow that, which makes sense. I mean, Roblox obviously doesn't want their servers that they pay a lot of money for to be used for you to save your files when you could just use Google Drive. Like, those servers on Roblox should be reserved for Roblox games, not for file storage. But this also got me thinking, like, would there be a smart way to counteract this, you know? Like, what if we make a game where the underlying premise would be to save data? So for this example, let's just say we want to save a piece of text, right? Not even an image, we just want to save a piece of text. How could we do so without triggering Roblox? How could we do so where it masquerades as a real game? Maybe it's a crappy game, maybe, you know, it's kind of like, it could be a crappy game, right? I'm not saying we have to make like a masterpiece here, but could we make something that looks like a game, but that has an underlying purpose to basically store your files? Now, for those of you who've used Studio before and who have a very keen eye to things, you might have noticed that I already have a script in here. And you also might have noticed that there are some numbers in here, right? Like, what do these numbers mean? So a couple minutes before I started recording this, I decided to experiment with this line of code. Now, I know this looks very confusing, but let me try and explain it as if you were literally like 10 years old, okay? People tell me that I'm kind of good at that, especially people who bought my course. Small plug. So the idea here is that I want to basically take a string, which is, you know, text, in this case being hello world. And I want to turn every single letter, including the space, so every single character you could say, into some sort of numerical value, right? Now, Roblox, unfortunately, as far as I could research, doesn't have a built-in function that lets you change text into binary, so ones and zeros, but it allows you to change text into bytes. And a byte is apparently 8 bits, so a bit is a 1 or a 0, so a byte is apparently like 8 of those. And this is something I'm still a bit confused about because the result isn't 8 bits, it's like 3 numbers, right? But basically the idea here is, and I'm just going to delete this real quick because this was just mainly for customization practices. If I were to take this string, which, by the way, I should also mention, what we're doing here is we're looping through this string, right? So, and this string, if I haven't mentioned before, is basically we're just looping through this text. So we're looping through H, then we're going looping through E, then L, then L, then O, then space, then W, then O, R, L, D. And so we're turning each character into a string.byte. We're turning that into a variable, and then we're printing that variable, right? So if I were to play this game, then as you can see, this represents H, this represents E, it prints 108 2 times because of the L, right? So H, E, L, L, then O, then this is the space bar, which you might notice is 32, so there's only 2 digits in here. And yeah, so the pattern here seems to be that every single character seems to be represented up to 3 digits, right? And so then if I were to bring this piece of code back in, the only thing that I did was, I basically did some calculations to say like, okay, if it says 32, so if there's only 2 digits in the number, then just add a 0 in front of it. And if there's only 1 digit in the number, then add a 0, 0 in front of it. So then if I do it like this, then the 32 turns into 032. This doesn't actually have a big impact on anything, but I don't know. I just think it looks better. Now, what this does, you know, as I was playing around with this, right, is it allows us to basically take any string and turn it into numerical value. So it's like that guy did with the chess game, right? He took an image, transformed it into binary, so that's what we're doing right now, right? But then he found a way to encrypt that, right? So he found a way to take that data and represent it as something. So in that case, he represented the data as chess moves, right? So I'm not too sure exactly what to be representing the data with, but what's important is that we have the data. Now, this might sound like incoherent rambling to you, and if it does, then don't worry, because it sounds like incoherent rambling to me as well. But like I said, what I know right now is that we found a way to convert string into numbers. And remember earlier how I brought up the idea of like, oh yeah, the player can like type something in to some sort of box, right? Well, we can actually just script that functionality into here, right? Like, I understand that, obviously, if I just blatantly publish this game and I title it like, oh yes, save your files here, Roblox will obviously ban it, right? And also, you know, just in case any Roblox or YouTube is watching, I'm not condoning to, you know, waste Roblox servers for your files, but I'm just saying that in a hypothetical scenario, for scientific purposes, this maybe hypothetically is somewhat possible. And so for this text box, I'll be honest, I actually don't use text box as much. I wonder if there's a way for like, oh yeah, look, there is, yeah, placeholder text. Okay, so I can just say like, type your text here. Can I do this? Oh yeah, look at that, awesome. So yeah, what we could do then is just whenever the player types a text and then they hit enter, then we could just fire a message to the script to effectively just do this, but instead of hello world, it'll be the string that we gave it, right? So let's actually try and do this right now. Script.parent, and then how do we know when the player pressed enter with the text box? I really wonder if this function does what I want, because what I want is I want like return pressed from on-screen keyboard, right? And I'm not too sure, but like, I don't know. Do you think this function does that? We'll just wait and see, I guess. And so, okay, then once the player does that, we just gotta get, the text inside of the text box, which can just be done by, local text is equal to script.parents.text, I believe. Yeah. And then from there, we just gotta send that text over to this script, which can be very easily done with a remote event. So from here, I can just say game, replicated storage, wait for child remote event. We can fire to the server, and we can give it this text as a value. And so then inside of this script, we can also say game, replicated storage, dot remote events, on server events, connect function, which will give us the player who fired the event, as well as any other data that we might give it. And as you remember, we gave it the text, right? So text, I guess, to encode, I don't know. And so yeah, we could just take this, put it over here, and then instead of hello world, we can say text to encode like so. So if I play the game, let's actually try this out, okay? Type my text here. Let's type in my amazing password, okay? This is a totally legit password. And if I hit enter, bam. So as you might have noticed, those with a keen eye and high intelligence, that didn't print anything. And let's actually do some bug fixing, I guess. I mean, if I print something, right? Will that thing print? Fascinating. So as you may notice, it's not printing 1, which means that return pressed from on-screen keyboard unfortunately seems to not do what I wanted, which was to identify when return was pressed from on-screen keyboard. So like I said, I didn't actually know what this function did, but clearly it doesn't do, it doesn't detect the return pressed from on-screen keyboard, unfortunately. I should have known, right? Should have been obvious. So I guess we should be using something else. Alright, so I found this thing called focus lost, which, let me just remove this print statement over here. Which does seem to work, like if I type something, it does work when I press enter. The problem is that focus lost means that we're just not focusing on this box anymore. So like if I type something in and then if I like click away, yeah, see like it changes over here. So if I just do this, it just changes, which I'm not a big fan of it doing that, I'll be honest. So instead, what we could do is game, user input service, input began, connect function, blah, 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 imp proc, and then we could easily say if proc is equal to true, or no, we can just say if proc, because that's the same thing. If proc, then return end, which basically means that if the player is typing return when they're typing in chat or whatever, then we don't do anything. And then we say if imp dot keycode is equal to enum.keycode.return, right? Then what we do is we say, or sorry, no, if it's not equal to return, then we return end, okay? But then if it is equal to return, then we say text, then we send a file, and then we do, what do we do again? Oh, right, yeah, the password thing. So, okay, that was a lot, but if we do it like this, then if I click away, nothing happens. If I click return or enter, there we go. Awesome, okay. And let's just double check that this works. So 102 represents F, 051 is 3, and then there's another 3 over here, and that's also 051. Okay, awesome. So 051, 051, so it seems to be consistent, so that is very good. So right now, we haven't done too much, but we have kind of encoded the text, right? So we have our password, and then it gets transformed into these letters, which is kind of good. So what we could do is inside of this local script, and I want to do this in a local script because then it's going to be local to our player, and it won't be visible to anybody else on the server. We will say local info folder is going to be equal to instance.new folder, obviously, and it's going to be inside of the workspace. And then we're going to say info folder.name is equal to info folder. Amazing. My idea here is that once we give the text to the script, right, I want it to, you know, once it does its decoding, I want it to take this letter byte thing, and I want it to basically send these results back to our local script, right? Which can be very easily done by just saying game, replicated storage, remote events, fire client, and we'll fire to our player, which obviously we have the player here, and then I'll attach the letter byte. And then in here, I'll do the same thing, game.replicated storage, wait for child remote events, this time on client event, connect function, and we will get the letter to byte. And so we just gotta also ensure that we're doing this correctly, because I need to ensure that this letter to byte is an actual number. So let's just actually ensure that this is a number and it's on like a piece of text or whatever. So let's see, if I do it like this, it is number string, or actually wait, you know what? Complete change of plans, okay? Instead of it being a number, let's just turn it into a string, okay? So all of them will now be strings. And if this is confusing right now, don't worry, because it's supposed to be confusing, okay? So, yeah. I'm just hiding the encryption method that I want to use just to, like, finish all of this stuff first, because if I explain the encryption method right now, it's not going to make too much sense. But look, all of this should be good. If I print it again, it should all be a string. Let me just see. Let me just check. Okay, all of them are strings. That's good. Okay. So then inside of the local script, right, once we get this letter to byte, we will do the same thing as we did here. So we're gonna loop through the string. We're gonna say for iv in string.split text to encode. In this case, text to encode is gonna be the letter to byte. And what I'm going to do is I'm gonna say local new part is gonna be equal to instance.new part. I am also going to say local r, local g, and local b. So we will leave these empty. And as we loop through this string, which remember, there should only be 3 numbers inside of this string. It should be like, I don't know, 104 or 051 or whatever, right? So what I want to do now is when we loop through these, and I'm just now realizing how stupid what I'm trying to do actually is. What I wanted to do is I just want to make a bunch of if statements, and I wanted to check, like, if I is equal to 1, then we'll set the letter to be R. If I is equal to 2, then it's going to be G, and then if I is equal to 3, it's going to be B. But what we could do is we could just say string.sub, and we can give it the string, which is the letter to byte, and we could just set it to be 1, like that. We could just do that. And what this will then do is this will just give us the first, second, and third character of the string, right? So R is going to be the first number, G is going to be the second number, and B is going to be the third number. And again, we got to remember that this is still a piece of text and it's not a number. So we got to turn it into a number by saying to number, and we do it like this. And yeah, we just got to do this for all of them. And now the code looks kind of weird, I'll be honest. But yeah, I mean, this makes sense, right? This, you know, this makes sense. And so then what we're going to do is we will say new part dot color is going to be equal to color3 from RGB, R, G, and B. Then we're going to say new part dot position is going to be equal to workspace dot spawn location dot position plus vector3 dot new 05 or no 010 0. So we're going to spawn it 10 studs above the spawn location. And then we're going to say new part dot parent is going to be equal to workspace dot info folder. Or actually, no, we could just set it equal to info folder because we already have a variable for it. So if I play the game right now, let me just see if this works as intended. So let's say my password is apple123123, okay? This is my password. I want to save this. If I now hit enter, all right, so you might have some questions over what just happened. What is going on is that all of these parts represent each character. And now you might be thinking, okay, but all of them are the same color. Like, they all look the same, right? Like, what's the joke here? What's the idea? Like, how can we decode these back into our password? But what's going to happen is that if we go inside of the workspace we have this info folder, right? And this is very important because this will not exist on the server. Look at that. There's no parts. There's no info folder. This only exists for us, right? And then if I were to open up the info folder and I check every single part, look at the color. 112, and then another 112, right? 108, 101, 049, 051. Is it clicking for you? Like, do you know what these are? So my method of encryption, my foolproof method of encrypting the password or the text or whatever, is that I take these numbers, right? So we loop through our piece of text, we transform each character into 3 numbers, and then for each character, we make a brand new part, and then we turn its color into those 3 numbers. And this is perfect because Roblox doesn't actually like think anything badly about this. I mean, this is just a simple game, you know? It's a funny game where you like type something and then you click enter and then like, whoa, a bunch of black parts get spawned in. Amazing, right? But like, if you download some sort of like Roblox script injector, not even injector, but like if you just download something that lets you see all of these items, right? Because all of this information Roblox gives to us, right? Like as a regular player, Roblox doesn't just show it to you, but your computer, your device has access to this information. So if you just download some sort of like application that lets you see all of this information, then you will be able to go into this folder, you'll be able to see all of these parts, and you will also be able to see their color. And you'll be like, okay, this part 101, by doing some quick decoding, we can now be like, okay, well, 101, what is that? That is this letter, right? And from then, we can reverse engineer and get our password back from just a bunch of Roblox parts. Now, a small issue that you might have thought about is like, oh, but Byteblox, how do we know the order of the parts? And that's a good question, right? Because look, if I type the password, well then, the problem is that if I then go into our folder, they're all called part. And we don't really know in what order we should look at the parts. So I'm just thinking right now, what we could do is we could just say local counter, and we can set this equal to be 1, okay? And what we're gonna do is we're gonna say new part dot name is gonna be equal to counter, right? So it's gonna be equal to 1. And then we will say counter plus equals 1. Meaning that we're going to increase counter by 1. So let's say we loop first, right? So then the part's name is going to be 1. Then we're going to add 1 to the counter, so now it's going to be 2. And then if there's another letter, then now the new part dot name is going to be equal to counter, which is now 2. So the part's name is going to be 2. Then it's going to increase by 1 again. Then it's going to be 3. Then it's going to be 4. So basically, if I do it like this, what's going to happen, and if I type in my password, is that now, let's see. If I were to go into the info folder, yep, there we go, look at that. So now we know that this is the first character, this is the second, third, fourth, fifth, ninth, 10th, 13th, 16th, 17th. Amazing. Now, obviously there are a bit of downsides to using this method. Like, number 1, this is going to be very slow to decode. I mean, look, if the purpose is that like you have like a small like series of text that you really need to keep secure, then doing it this way and making it slow to decode would be good because then it's more secure, I guess. The other thing as well is that like obviously this, you know, isn't like don't actually do what I just did to store your passwords. Like this is just a test. Like this is just a proof of concept to show that you could do something like this before all the angry comments get spawned in from somewhere. I'm not saying that you should use this for like high-level security. I'm not saying that Google should now replace their 2-factor authentication for all of their accounts with this method. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is cool proof of concept that you could do something like that, right? You could make a part, you could change something like its color, right, which nobody would really even consider, into what is basically a character. You know what I mean? Like all of these parts, it's not actually about the part, it's about the color. And the other thing I will mention as well is that this game is useless because it doesn't actually save anything. Like if I were to leave right now and then if I were to play the game again, none of that is saved. All of those parts are just gone. And if you were to save the game, well then obviously it would go, like, it would be saved to Roblox servers, which means that we would have to use a data store service, which is a whole other thing. In case you are curious, it is something that I'll make a tutorial on soon because I do think that a lot of people don't know how to use data stores. It will be a fairly simple tutorial, and if you want to understand data stores at a fundamental level, like right now, I will plug my course again. I know, you know, you can skip, whatever. But if you're a beginner developer, and if you like my teaching style, I do have a course. It covers basically everything about Roblox Studio. It covers how to also learn things about Roblox Studio that I might not teach in the course. Like, I don't teach VR, for example, but if you want to learn VR for your game, I explain how you can look things up and how you can find the necessary information to basically make whatever game you want. And a good amount of the lessons in the course are actually free to preview, like no sign up, no credit card. So you can go click on the link in the description or the pinned comment and check out the course and buy it if you feel like it's good. And you'll find my Instagram link also there, so do follow, because I don't know, it's just I don't know, like, why wouldn't you follow me, you know? I have like pictures of pigeons in my Instagram, so you can go check it out and like the photos. But yeah, back to the actual like topic of the video. Yeah, as it is right now, this isn't really a good encryption method. Like, you know, if I have like a very secure piece of text and I hit enter, a big problem is that, like, you know, it makes the parts, that's great, but again, it doesn't save them. And if I then want to type in another piece of string, let's say if I have another password, it just spawns them on top of one another, and it just puts all of them into the same folder, and it doesn't like separate them. So there definitely is a better way of doing this. Like, if I actually were tasked with making this a real thing, like an actual game that actually is meant to save your files, I would definitely spend more time on it and definitely, you know, like, improve it and give it all of these improvements like I just said. But this is a great proof of concept that shows that you can make a Roblox game that is able to save certain information while still masquerading as somewhat of a real game, you know? And I mentioned this in the beginning of the video, but I just wonder how many popular games are out there right now, like actual Roblox games, like, I don't know, Pet Simulator or something, right? Do any of those games have something that, like, lets you save data to those games? Because I know that a lot of those games have things that you can save, right? So I'm just wondering, like, if you play something like Apocalypse Rising or whatever, maybe you can use, like, its inventory system as binary, you know? Like, I don't know, maybe if like, you have, like, a can of beans in the game, and then if you move it to a certain square, then, like, the can of beans on that specific square is gonna represent a certain character, for example. Like I'm sure that by doing a lot of mental gymnastics, you could definitely find a Roblox game out there that's popular, that has a lot of players, that lets you easily save information, and you can use that to develop a system that lets you basically store files there, right? Or, I mean, you know, you could just use Google Drive as well. You know, like, that's probably a better alternative than Roblox games. So yeah, let me know actually, like, more improvements that you would make to this game, because, again, all of this is just from the top of my head. I haven't really put too much thought into how I would make this a perfect 10 out of 10 experience that perfectly saves your files without a trace and makes it look real. So I'm sure that, like I said, there's things that I missed. I will also say that if you want to, you could try and actually make this concept into, like, an actual game, and then you could, you know, join my Discord server, DM me, I have my DMs open, send me screenshots of the game to say, like, hey, I did it like this, it works like this, here's how it encrypts files, maybe send a video on it. And if you do that, I will make a video about that, because I'm actually really curious to see a game do this in action. So that would be really cool. And so yeah, let me know what you think. Once again, if you like my teaching style and you're a beginner developer, do check out my course. Do follow my Instagram, because, I don't know, it's just like, come on, like, you know, if you had a following of 70,000 subscribers, you probably want some of them to follow your Instagram, because it just looks cool, you know? Like, I don't know, an Instagram with only 2 posts that has, like, 50,000 followers. I don't know, it just looks, it looks cool, you know? But with that being said, as always, we are back to basics. Thank you for watching.